The next component is the detector. So the eluted solute particles along with the carrier gas exit from the column and enter the detector. So first we have maintained the pressure of the carrier gas, then we have heated the or vaporized the sample, then after that we have mixed it with the carrier gas, then they have entered into the column, then after eluting out from the column there is a detector. So the eluted solute particles along with the carrier gas, they will exit from the column and it will enter into the detector. So the detector then produces electrical signals which will be proportional to the concentration of the components of solute. So this detector will produce an electrical signal, and these electrical signals will be proportional to the concentration of the components of the solute. So we can get to know the concentration. Then the signals are amplified and recorded as peaks at intervals on the chromatograph. So we can get a chromatogram onto which we can see the different peaks at different time intervals. The next are the properties of an ideal detector. So various detectors we can use in the gas chromatography depending on the sample which we are using. But the properties of an ideal detector are it should be sensitive, then it should operate at high temperature. So because we are using high temperature at the column or at that particular oven, so it should be operated at high temperature. Then it should be stable and reproducible. Then it should not happen after completing the one experiment we cannot use that detector. So that should be reproducible and stable. Then it should give a linear response. Then wide dynamic range should be possible. Then fast response should be there. It should be simple, or we can say it should be reliable. Then that detector should be non-destructive, and it should give uniform response to all the analytes. So there are different types of detectors. First is the thermal conductivity detectors. So thermal conductivity detector is based on the fact that heat lost from the filament depends upon the thermal conductivity of the stream of surrounding gas as well as its specific heat. So whatever the heat that is lost from the filament, it is depend on thermal conductivity of the stream of the surrounding gases. Where gas flows, the heat loss to the metal block will be constant, so the temperature of the filament will remain constant. Then when the analyte along with the carrier gas will flow, then the thermal conductivity will get changed. So the resistance will get changed, and it can be sensed by Wheatstone bridge arrangement. So when there will be the flow of only carrier gas, then that time the heat loss will be constant and there will not be change in the temperature of the filament. When the same carrier gas will pass along with the analyte, then heat lost will get changed. So that's why the temperature of the filament will get changed, and this can be sensed by Wheatstone bridge arrangement. Then the imbalance between control and sample filament temperature is measured and the signal is recorded. So here you can see, first there is the flow of only carrier gas. So that time the heat loss will be constant and temperature of the filament will be constant. But when the gas will flow along with the analyte, then that time the heat loss will get changed. So the temperature of the filament will get changed, and this can be detected. Then the advantages of this detector is that it is simple and inexpensive, then it is durable, and it is having a long life. Then it gives an accurate results, and it is non-selective, so that's why we can use this detector as a universal detector. If we see the disadvantage of this detector, then it is low sensitivity and it is also affected by fluctuations in temperature and the flow rate. Second type of detector is electron capture detector. So molecules of compounds which possess affinity for electrons that will differ in their electron absorbing capacities. So if the molecules so the molecules will have different electron absorbing capacity, and these differences of electron absorbing capacities of the molecules into from the sample is used for the detection, or we can say for the identification of the compound. Then in this, a foil is made up of radioactive metal like nickel 63, and this foil is placed inside the Teflon coated cell, which will also contain the electrodes, that is cathode and anode. So in absence of organic species, the produced electron will migrate towards the positive electrode, and it will produce a certain constant standing current. So if there is no organic species, then that time there will be the constant current, because electrons will move towards the positive charge or positive cathode or positive electrode. When a sample is present, it will capture the electron and it will elute from the column. So there will be the drop in the constant current, and the potential across the two electrodes is adjusted to collect all the ions and a steady saturation current, and therefore it is recorded. So here you can see the two electrodes are there, and if there is absence of organic species, then that time there will be the constant flow of electrons, and if the analyte will be present, then they will absorb the electrons, so the current will get fluctuated and it can be detected. If we see the advantage of this detector, it is very selective, and it is also sensitive for the detection of compounds like halogens, quinones, peroxides, nitrides, etc. Then this detector is non-destructive, and it is more sensitive than the previous, that is TCD and FID detector. Then the disadvantage of this detector are these are least sensitive to the compounds whose molecules have negligible affinity for the electrons. So if we are analyzing the compound which are having low, or we can say negligible affinity for the electrons, then that time we cannot analyze or we cannot separate those components. Then the carrier gas that is used, it should be of pure form like pure nitrogen. So if that carrier gas is not pure, then that time it will not detect properly. Then third type of detector is flame ionization detector. So this employs hydrogen flame that is maintained in a small cylindrical jet made up of a platinum or quartz. So in this flame ionization detector, hydrogen flame is maintained, and effluent from the column with the helium or nitrogen as a carrier gas are fed into the hydrogen flame, gets ignited and undergoes pyrolysis to produce the ions. So whatever the effluent that is coming out from the column, it is then ignited along with this hydrogen flame. So it will produce the ions. Then for the detection of these ions, two electrodes are used. So that will provide a potential difference. So the ions that are produced are repelled by the positive electrode, which will hit the collector plate, and the current produced in doing so is then amplified and fed to an appropriate recorder. So whatever the ions that are present, that are produced by using the hydrogen flame, these are then repelled by the positive electrode, so that will hit the collector plate, and whatever the current that is produced, it is then amplified and it can be then recorded. So here you can see the flame ignition coil is there, so that will so that will ignite our sample, and the ions that will get repelled, and this can be hit to the collector plate, and the current can be recorded. The fourth type of detector, that is flame photometric detector. So it is a selective detector that is responsive to compounds that are containing sulfur or phosphorus. So if we are having the sample which contain the sulfur or phosphorus, then for such type of samples we can use the flame photometric detector. Then the detection principle is the formation of excited sulfur and excited hydrogen phosphorus oxide species in a reducing flame. So these excited species can be detected. Then a photomultiplier tube, it will be there, and this photomultiplier tube will measure the characteristics of this chemiluminescence or chemiluminescence emission from this species. So if that sample is having the sulfur or phosphorus, then we can see the chemiluminescence. And the optical filter can be changed, so that will allow the photomultiplier to view the light of 394 nanometer for the sulfur measurement or 526 nanometer for the phosphorus measurement. So this is the optical detector. Then this type of detector we can use for the detection of heavy metals like chromium, selenium, tin, etc. in organometallic compounds. Then it can also be used for the analysis of pesticides, coal, hydrogenated products, etc. So here you can see there is a outlet of the gas chromatographic column, and there is a chemiluminescence detection region is there, so that will detect and it will gives the signal. So here is the working of gas chromatography. So first there is a carrier gas, then by using that particular regulator we have to maintain the flow of the gas and pressure of the gas. Then there is the inlet chamber is there, or we can say injector port is there, and we have to introduce the sample by using that particular syringe. Then after that it will get mixed with the carrier gas. Then after mixing it will flow from the column, and based on the solubility differences it will get separated. So if the compound or if the components are having the solubility with the stationary phase, then it will elute out from the column later, and if the components will not have solubility with the stationary phase, then they will elute out from the column first, and it can be detected by the detector, and it is then recorded on the computer. Then after this, we can get the such type of chromatogram onto the computer. So on the x-axis, we can say the time is there, at what time that particular component has been come out from the column, and on the y-axis we can say the intensity. So for each component we can get such peak. Then there is that peak will that particular peak will represent the retention time. Retention time is the time that is required to elute out from the column for that component. And again, this retention time, it is based on the reference list. So we have to check the reference list and we have to compare which component is that. Then next are the applications of gas chromatography. So gas chromatography is basically used for the separation and analyzing the components from the mixture and analyte. So they are having a wide range of applications. So we can use this gas chromatography in the pharmaceutical applications. So in quality control and analysis of drug products like antibiotics, antivirals, then general anesthetics, etc. So this we can analyze by using the gas chromatography. Then this can be used for the assay of drugs. That means we can check the purity of compounds by using the gas chromatography. The components will be atropine sulfate, clove oil, stearic acid, etc. Then this gas chromatography can be also used in the determining the levels of metabolites in the body fluids like plasma, serum, urines, etc. Then next, there are miscellaneous applications of gas chromatography. It can be used for the analysis of foods like carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, vitamins, steroids, drug and pesticides residue, then trace elements. So pollutants like formaldehyde, then carbon monoxide, benzene, DDT can also be analyzed by using gas chromatography. Then we can also analyze the dairy products like milk, butter, and we can detect the aldehydes. Then we can detect the milk sugar, ketones and fatty acids that are present in the dairy products. Then we can separate and identify the volatile materials, plastics, then natural and synthetic polymers, paints and microbiological samples. So it is regarding the gas chromatography. Thank you.